Good afternoon and welcome to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM. Each week, I invite an expert from the world of business to share their knowledge, insights, and tips to help you with your business challenges. If there's a topic you would like covered, or if you feel you can make a contribution, please email me at yourbusiness@dublincityfm.ie, and perhaps we'll be having a chat here one day soon. My guest today is a native of Cork, now living in Oceanside, California. He's a global beverage sales expert and he's a best-selling author. My goodness me, there's a lot to talk about there. I'm delighted to welcome Andrew Fitzgerald to the You and Your Business studio. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, Alec. Thanks for inviting me on and sharing your platform with me.
Delighted to do so, and jealous that you're in nice weather in California and I've got lights around me and waiting for the hour to change here. But anyway, that's another story of my problem. And let me take you back to your sort of last year in school. I like to do this with all my guests just to get an understanding. Were you the academic? Were you the person who wanted to get into work? Were you sports? Were you just wanted to travel the world? What was on your mind?
Well, to be fair, I wouldn't say I was the most academic, but I certainly did enough to get my leaving cert and find my way into college. But I was very sporty. I played soccer and I played golf to a very good level.
Right.
And I guess my ambition would have been to be a professional soccer player or a professional golfer at one stage, but that just didn't work out.
Uh-huh. Was it the skill? Was it the dedication that prevented you, or?
You know what? I think I remember Cork City coming to the door, as they used to do back in the 90s, knock on the door and ask me to join. And I was too loyal to my local community in Cork and Avondale United. I guess we were all playing in the community, all our buddies. So perhaps maybe a little bit of self-sabotage along the way. But I definitely, trying to play two sports and study and, all that kind of thing. It just didn't work out. So.
Yeah, of course. And you have to prioritize things. So what were you going to do? I mean, off to college, maybe?
Yeah, so after finishing secondary school, I went and studied marketing in the Cork College of Commerce. And at that time, for me, it was something that I was really interested in, the marketing of goods and services. And I was working in the pro shop in my local golf club, in Monkstown Golf Club, during the summer months and at the weekends while in college. And I absolutely loved the sales aspect of that. So that's where my passion for sales really developed and grew.
My goodness, what a nice job. Somebody who's mad keen about golf, working in the pro shop for golf. And of course, you would have been getting a lot of feedback of sort of the impact of what you were selling to those customers. So that must have been really good to get that.
Yeah, I think like for me, absolutely, it was great to, work with a member and sell some golf equipment, and for that person to go off then and play well and come back and compliment me. It felt like a job well done and something that I added value to. Because I think that's what it's all about in sales, is adding value to someone. And then someone coming back, no better endorsement. Hey, Andrew, thank you so much for your advice. It's working well for me.
That's fantastic. That's a great way to start. And I don't think enough people in sales kind of recognize that feedback from customers, whether good, bad, or indifferent, is important.
Oh, absolutely. Customers, consumers, like they vote with their money. They tell us what product and brand is getting picked up. And we should always listen to customers and consumers, because they're the barometer for what's working well and also what's not working well.
So anyway, you've got an early sort of induction into selling, which you obviously like, and you've found a field that is close to your heart. But obviously, you can't be staying there all your life. And well, a golf pro shop you could, of course, but you had to move on to other things. So what was your next port of call?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I really liked the sales aspect, but it was people coming into the shop, and I was curious. So they're coming to me, so they're obviously coming with a reason to come into the shop, and they have a need. But perhaps I could create demand. So I remember it, Alec. I sat down at home in Blackrock in Cork, and I wrote 45 letters and posted 45 CVs. Back then, it wasn't really email, 1995, 96.
Right.
And sending up my CV looking for a job. And one member, lots of members replied, but one member put me in touch with Cadbury's, the chocolate company based in Coolock in Dublin. And I accepted a job as a merchandiser covering the West Cork territory. And from there, I never looked back. It was a fantastic job and a great grounding into sales, starting at the ground floor level, literally merchandising.
Yes, of course. And also, you've just learned the power of networking. That's how you got the job.
Yes, correct. And without really knowing it at the time, I was just, hey, can you help me out here? But there you go. That's what it is.
That's what the power of networking is. So, okay, you're with Cadbury's. How long do you spend there, and what was on the cards next for you?
Yeah, so I spent about 2.5 years there, and Cadbury's very kindly invested in my further education as well, and helped me get on a night course for sales and selling skills and psychology of sales. Then I joined a company called Shelton Distributors, who were based in Rathcoole, another chocolate company. So I worked as a sales representative covering Cork, Kerry and Limerick. So that was a lot more territory for me, a little bit more of a step up in terms of responsibility. Family business owned by the Barber brothers, still in business, great people. And then from there, I actually moved into the alcohol space.
Just kind of sticking with the chocolate for a minute, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You've now, I presume Shelton's are rivals to Cadbury's.
Well, yes and no, but well, I suppose they are. Anyone that's selling a chocolate product is a rival, but I think Shelton kind of specialize more in the sweet factory, that kind of candy stuff that wouldn't be sort of very well known. But I'd say they complement each other too,
Yeah, and that's interesting. It's another aside. I always think of Talbot Street in Dublin when I was much younger, and I remember looking and seeing about 10 shoe shops all side by side and thinking, why are they all here and how are they doing? But as you said, they complemented each other, and sometimes that is the case. People often overlook that in business.
Yeah, I think there's certain things that complement each other. It's like when a new grocery store opens in a local location, you say, oh my God, I can't believe it. But it brings people to the area, it brings footfall, it brings interest and sales.
As you mentioned, alcohol was calling, but in the right way. You wanted to get involved in that work.
Alcohol was always calling, because when we worked in the pro shop in Monkstown and the great evenings being so bright till 11 o'clock in Ireland, we'd play golf after work about 6 o'clock and then we'd have a few pints. But I got an opportunity to work with Diageo, St. James Gate, in a sort of a contract capacity with them as a merchandising manager for the western half of the country, managing a team of 7 sales professionals. Absolutely loved it. I mean, being involved in the alcohol business, albeit being responsible, is a fun business.
And you've now kind of stepped up. Now you have to manage people. That presents other challenges as well.
Yeah, so I guess that, I became a bit of an expert in terms of how I approach sales. So I was able to impart those skills and experience working with people, motivating, coaching people. But when I went back to talking about my soccer days, I was captain for a number of years. And I just found the best way to work with people and help people is to bring them up, spend time with them, get to know them, motivate them. Everybody has a bad day. But how I really did well there was spending time out in trade with the sales folks, getting to know them and helping them and training them, and me learning from them too.
Yeah, and it's amazing. So many organizations take people in and just throw them out there and expect them to swim, and then wonder why it doesn't work out.
I'm not a great proponent of this, just figure it out and off you go. Yes, you have to learn on the job and learn on the fly, but I go back to my merchandising on my knees in the Dunnes stores, stocking the shelves, maybe getting bashed by the odd trolley, or having to give advice where the soup aisle is. And I didn't have a problem with that. But it taught me, self-discipline, time management skills, relationships. And I guarantee you, every store manager would have said, there's Andrew, he turns up in time. We can bank on him. And that's just stuck with me, conscientiousness.
And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my studio guest today is Andrew Fitzgerald. Andrew, okay, so you're with Diageo, but another opportunity then comes for you for Cork. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so Heineken, the company based in Cork, had an opportunity as a sales representative in what we call the off trade, so calling on off licenses in supermarkets. And I absolutely thought that this was a great move for me. Super brands as well, and an opportunity to work for a company based in Cork, which we all know, of course, is the People's Republic.
I'll say nothing based in Dublin. I'll say absolutely nothing.
The rivalry still exists.
No, it doesn't. Not in Dublin. It's never existed in Dublin. Don't you worry about it. No, you're fine. So 5 years in Heineken, then you were to get another move because there was some sort of amalgamation. Yeah,
so Heineken had, purchased Beamish and Crawford, which is another great brewery in Cork, and ultimately, they wanted to amalgamate the two companies. So company offered some voluntary redundancies. And my wife, Jane, who's also from Cork, we had done a lot of traveling and fell in love with Southern California. So I put my hand up and applied for the voluntary redundancy because, Alec, we were lucky enough to enter the green card lottery for a permanent resident card. And we were picked. And that gave us a little bit of financial breathing space to make the move to America in San Diego in September 2012.
I mean, that green card is worth gold to you.
Yeah, I mean, how else could you come to the country really and set yourself up for success other than having a permanent resident card? And we've been very fortunate, and it is home for us now, albeit Ireland will always be home in our hearts.
But it wasn't home for you on the first trip
Mm.
across. There were challenges being presented.
Yeah, I guess for your listeners, so Jane and I were very structurally organized. We knew what we needed to do. We needed to get bank accounts. We knew where we need to live. We found work. We did all that, but we were just naturally homesick. We hadn't banked on that. And I guess as time went on, we didn't know anyone. We didn't push ourselves socially. So we decided that we would make a move back home to Ireland. And before we did that, we traveled all the west coast of America, up into Canada, and then went to Florida and spent a few weeks there because we said, hey, we may never be back in America again.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a great sort of thing to do. I mean, you were getting to see a completely different culture, and also really America, it's a whole continent in itself in terms of like Europe. So you were seeing all the way up to Canada and things. There must have been something that attracted you about it, because the fact that you went back. But what do you think that was?
I've always seen America as a very optimistic country. I do believe, in hard work and tenacity does get rewarded. It's 50 states, so it's like 50 little countries within a country. A lot of opportunity. And I guess we didn't really settle back into Ireland, which was strange because that's where we're from and our home. But I guess the biggest thing was there was a regret from both of us that, honestly, we weren't tough enough on each other. We should have toughened it out. It was our plan. We had wanted to move, and we should have been patient with each other. So we decided to go again.
And that's a brave decision to make, because really what you were having to admit to yourselves was we made a mistake. And often people will make the mistake and then spend the rest of their lives in regret. Whereas you took the more tenacious approach and said, let's go back. Let's give it another try.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think people should punish themselves when they realize they've made a mistake. You made decisions based on the information you had, but
Sure.
The ability to compare and contrast, Alec, was huge. So it was apparent that we ourselves hadn't given ourselves the best shot. It wasn't that America was better than Ireland or Ireland was better than America. No. So we decided to go again, and we kind of sat down and designed what the plan would be when we got back to America. And as luck would have it, a job came up with Heineken in San Diego. So that was a great start for me.
Sure.
And my wife's company, who also operate in America, had a job open up for her. So a little bit luck of the Irish, and off we went.
And that's fantastic. And I noticed that it was the West Coast that attracted you. You didn't kind of head for the usual haunts of New York or Boston or somewhere like that.
Yeah, no, we're the vibrancy of Southern California, the weather, of course, the beaches, the great golf courses, the cultural diversity. It was just something that really stood out for me. But I remember my mom and dad visited San Francisco many years ago, and they brought me back a little nameplate for my bedroom door, which said California on it. So I was surrounded by California every day coming out of my bedroom as a young fella. And I guess my mom blamed herself then when I emigrated.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. It just shows the impression it had. And of course, it's fully understandable with your love of sports and having that weather. Every time I look at the US Open, I know they get the odd day of rain, but I kind of look at those courses and I look at that weather and I think, wow, yeah, it looks fantastic.
It is. I'm very, very grateful to be able to do so many things all year round.
So anyway, while you were indulging yourself in terms of a nice lifestyle, that has to be paid for. So you were obviously going to embark on a new career. You're with Heineken, but that wasn't going to hold you back. You had other things to do as well.
Yeah, sure. So I worked with Heineken in San Diego. Absolutely, hit the ground running, as we say. And again, it was relationships with the distributor, relationships with retailers, taking interest in people, be personable. And an opportunity came up to work for a company called Mike's Hard Lemonade. And that was a step-up role as a key account manager for the Western half of America. Right. And I took that job. And that was calling on the likes of head offices of big supermarket chains, having a conversation, Alec, like us, one-on-one, understanding the business. How can we help you? How do you look at your business? And then presenting solutions and programs and ideas.
You were also sort of introducing a new product. I mean, that must have been an interesting challenge for you.
So the owner of the company, Anthony, a great entrepreneur, a Canadian man, had seen a movement from sparkling water. A lot of people were buying flavored sparkling water, and he thought about putting alcohol into sparkling water. Now, technically, it's a little bit more than that, but low sugar, gluten free. So he came up with the plan to launch White Claw Hard Seltzer, which is now available in the Irish market. And he wanted to launch in Southern California. So I was the key account manager tasked with launching, and I approached my two biggest customers to do a full sell in with a plan. And now there was a lot more work involved, but we did get it launched.
No, I can imagine that. So, I mean, there's obviously reservations because retail space is at a premium. So you must have had a good script to get some of that space.
Yeah. So the first thing I did was I got samples to everybody except the two key buyers. So I created demand all around them within their network and within the grocery chain. So they were, hey, Andrew, where's my sample? I'm the guy who's making the decision. So suddenly I had people talking about it. Then I went to meet with like the soda buyer who buys for flavored water to understand that category and flavors. But ultimately, when I got into the new item meeting and we did a tasting, the buyers turned to me and asked me, Andrew, what's your recommendation? And for anyone listening, to be asked in sales what your recommendation is a lot of trust. So I had the plan in place. It was only going to go into 100 stores in each chain so that we could manage it and mind it and build it up until at such stage that we had the data to say, yeah, now we need to go full throttle.
And that's fantastic because people often think, oh, you were lucky. There's no luck in these things. It's about just good planning, good foresight, and good knowledge and understanding your customers and how to bring them on board, particularly with something like a new product.
Yeah, absolutely. We put the plan in place, but you have to execute. And I have to say there was a lot more other people involved. So, the sales representatives out on the ground. We hired a great marketing agency to do samplings in stores. So it was a beautiful, there was plenty of things that didn't go right in the first few weeks, but we ironed them out and we worked and it, now it's a $2 billion brand in America.
Wow. All right. But you weren't happy to stay there. You were on the move again fairly soon.
Yeah. So I think that, sort of to give context, when Jane and I moved back here, we never knew if we would last 3 years or 5 years. And now fast forward 11 years, we're here.
Sure.
So if I was coming back to Ireland, I felt I'd like to come back with extra skills, more experience. So a job came up with Boston Beer, which is the maker of Sam Adams. Right. And they launched a product called Truly Hard Seltzer, which is the number 2 to White Claw now. And they were looking for somebody to help them come on board and launch it with Costco, which is kind of like a big warehouse account. So got on board, came in, did a great job there and absolutely loved their work culture was fantastic. Training for the future, Alec, in terms of leadership and negotiation.
Yeah. And again, that's so important. So many companies just don't invest in that area. If you want to keep people today, it's not all about money. It's about, making people feel relevant in the company and upskilling them.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to fly from San Diego to Boston every 5 weeks, which is about a 6-hour flight for a full weeks of training, intensive, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. A lot of, videotaping you. So you understand, how you can improve, and we're always trying to improve, and you should always be open to feedback, and I got plenty of feedback that still stays with me to this day.
I'd say you did all right. And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my guest today is Andrew Fitzgerald. We're just talking about the importance of investment in training, and that's serious investment. And these companies don't throw their money away easily. So there is a lesson for a lot of the listeners out there. If you have employees, you should be investing, a percentage of your profits in training.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what department you work in. If you're representing a company or a brand in marketing, finance, HR, sales, you got to be sure that person understands your product and the attributes and the benefits and that they're out in the market representing you to the best of their abilities.
You were then going to move to another brand, a well-known international brand.
Yeah, so this was really interesting. This move, I thought that was something that would, really set me up, in terms of opportunity for the future. So Coca-Cola had a job within California for their venturing and emerging and innovation brands. Nice. So they were launching a brand called Topo Chico, which is a sparkling water, and they were going to eventually get into the beer business, into the alcohol business, which they have done now. So I joined them, but unfortunately, after 6 months, got caught up in a restructure. Coca-Cola is such a huge company, great people, great training. And I, along with 349 other people, were laid off, which was unfortunate, of course. When you make a decision to move, you make it based on a lot of factors. Yes. And then I guess COVID struck. And at that time, my wife and I was working from home. My son Alfie was 9 months old, so I did the stay-at-home daddy daycare thing.
Great, great.
Which I loved. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and guess what? You can't buy back this time. I mean, you could be working from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. and miss all those important pieces of a child's life.
So instead of negotiating with a buyer about space within store, I was negotiating with my son about tidying up the room, or all various different things.
I'd say that was a losing battle.
Correct.
It's amazing. The children are born with an innate skill, as you learn as we go along. All right, so COVID, you're there. You've now got some time on your hands and time to reflect, and that was going to produce something. So let's talk about the book and what it's called, why you decided to write it, who it's targeted at, and what you're hoping the audience will get out of it. My goodness, there's a load of questions in one go. Yeah.
Thank you. So going back to my school days, as I said, and I'm not, being self-deprecating, but I wasn't the most academic. However, I loved English and I loved writing because I was always asked to write as much as you can in an essay about anything you want to write about. And I wrote about soccer and golf because I knew so much about them. I could be so descriptive and creative. And my teacher always said, wow, you've got a flair for writing. So long before COVID struck, I was, chatting with Jane about, oh my God, this is kind of a bit of a story, all the stuff that's happened in anyone's life. We all have stories. We all have circumstances and situations. And she was very encouraging. And I started writing and I stopped and I started. And I just repeated that cycle. So, in sales, as in life, there are times when you need support and help. So I did find a great lady who lives here in Oceanside, ironically, 2 miles away from my house, but we didn't know that at the time. And she was a book coach and editor. So she helped me structure the book. And the book, Alec, today, as we record, is 3 weeks old. And it's called How Did I Get Here? Traveling the Road to Resilience. And we have the Irish flag and the American flag on the book, on the cover. And it's out on Amazon worldwide in ebook and paperback format. And it's a memoir biography of my life, but the theme is resilience and the ability to overcome some tough times in your life, the ability to survive and thrive and keep going. There's lots of things happening. A lot of the stuff in the book is real world reality. And I wrote it for 3 reasons. One was to have no regrets later in life that I didn't do it. So I've done that, tick the box. Number 2 was to hand a copy to my son, Alfie, because he is our only child as of now. God may be good to us. But I want him to know about our lives here growing up, or here in America, and also growing up in Ireland. And so he has his copy. I handed it to him and he started laughing when he saw me on the back cover. And then the third reason really is for people. I hope they are motivated and inspired and maybe even transformed to chase those dreams, because I had lots of dreams and, lots of tough times, and anything can be overcome. I think the biggest thing takeaway in the book is that you must trust yourself. You must back yourself 100%. Sure. If you do that, the right time to get support and help to overcome anything you have going on in life.
No, and there's a couple of things there just to comment. Number one is everybody has a book in them. And for most people, it stays in them. They never get it out. So in fairness, you've done that. But there's a piece of that I think is very important for our listeners to understand. If you have a book inside you, there is a discipline to writing it, but also there's a skill set, and you went out and found somebody to help you to do it in a professional way. You might just talk about what they contributed and how that helped you.
Yeah, so I think that number one, it held me accountable. We had a timeline in place so that, there was no quarter given. Andrea was, kept me accountable. Here's the timeline. This is what you got to produce, even if it's only 2 pages, something small, break it down into small granular objectives so you feel like you're achieving something. Structuring the story. So, I would sit down to write and I'd head off in different directions, and then editing it. And then also the process of loading it to Amazon. And Amazon have been great. I mean, it's the easiest way for me to get it out into the worldwide market. But I do hope, and I've always been a big proponent of independent businesses. So, I do hope to try and figure out how I can get into some independent bookstores in Ireland, but I'm not there. I'm over here. So I got to go get some more support again. And I think for your listeners in general, you always know when you do need support, we're not experts at everything. That's why we should lean on each other and get that support.
Yeah, and these radio shows are sort of typical of what I do, that everybody has a story, and that's why I'm delighted you're sharing your story with us. in terms of the book, what do you believe it'll do? You've mentioned motivate people, but also you mentioned some tough times and resilience. Do you want to talk about that for 30 seconds or anything like that?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't, you know, we only have a short bit of time left, but I flatlined twice as a teenager in Ireland and was successfully resuscitated. I had a genetic heart condition that only came to the fore when I played soccer, really a vigorous exercise, and the only way to bring my heartbeat down was to stop it. So I overcame that, but I didn't really deal with it as a teenager. And unfortunately, you know, my wife and I suffered 4 miscarriages all over here in America, and that was really tough for us. So Alfie, as our 5th pregnancy, but only our first successful pregnancy, has been a blessing. So along the way, we've had lots of trials and tribulations. Everybody has something. They don't have to be as serious as being resuscitated. No. Miscarriage is a tough topic, both for males, females, and couples. So the book will help guide people through whatever they're going through. There's a lot of fun stories in there too, of course, lighthearted stuff.
Of course, yeah. No, I think that's great because that gives some more insights to, you know, and it's a personal story, and the ability to share personal things that people often think, well, it's only me it's happening to. No, it's not. It's happening to all around you, and you need to understand it. I suppose in the last minute we've got left, is there a sort of tell people about the book again, where they can find it, any websites, and in the final 30 seconds, then you've got, tell us what's next and what new chapter is about to open for Andrew.
Yeah, so I learned from a senior manager in Heineken to keep it simple. So I'm going to just keep it simple. My website is andrewfitzgeraldauthor.com. You can go there and get all the information. The book is out on Amazon in all marketplaces as an ebook and a paperback. And the next move for me is to concentrate on this book launch. It's exceeding all expectations on so many levels for me. I'm having so many people reach out to me on a very authentic level to tell me their stories. I'm going to stick with it. I'm outside my comfort zone because I was never an author before. Safe and secure for me is working on a brand launch, but I guess perhaps I'm my own brand now. So I got to get used to that a little bit in one way, and I'm enjoying it.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that and every success with it. A special thanks to our guest today, Andrew Fitzgerald, for joining us on the You and Your Business. A special thanks to Sam on Sound. The podcast of today's show will be available on dublincityfm.ie from tomorrow. Thank you for your company. And please remember to join me, Alec Drew, again next week at the same time, 1 o'clock, right here on 103.2 Dublin City FM for another edition of You and Your Business.